Hey y'all, welcome back to my She Reads series, because she reads. And today I'm going to be talking about the next book that I read. All right, let me go get it. Okay, so the next book that I read was called Queer Ducks by Eliot Schrefer. And this is what it looks like. My chair's squeaky. We know this. So, if that sounds interesting to you, I'm so glad you're here. Please keep on watching. So, Queer Ducks. Such an amazing concept for a book. It's called Queer Ducks and Other Animals, and the subtitle is The Natural World of Animal Sexuality. New York Times bestselling author. The reason why I read this book is because I saw Eliot Schrefer, talk about this book on an episode of The Daily Show. This was a couple years ago, and yeah, he sold it to me. He sold me the book, and I bought it. It's quite short. Let me see. It's only like 200 pages. Not even. No, like 175 pages. So really, really short read. The way the book is structured is that he has 10 chapters where in each chapter he talks about a different animal and he talks about that animal's queer tendencies. So chapter 1, doodlebugs. Chapter 2, bonobos. Chapter 3, fruit flies. Chapter 4, bottlenose dolphins. Chapter 5, Japanese macaws. Chapter 6, deer. Chapter 7, wrasse fish. Chapter 8, albatross. Chapter 9, bulls. And then chapter 10, ducks and geese. Hence the title, Queer Ducks. Usually for this series, I go through different quotes that I highlighted and really enjoyed. But for this book, I didn't highlight anything. It was so informative, and I don't know, nothing stuck out to me so much that I needed to highlight it. So instead, I'm gonna go through each animal and kind of tell you what I remember, or most of the animals, not all the animals, but so he starts the book talking about, it's the introduction, the subtitle is The Immorality of Penguins. And from what I remember, he's talking about like how penguins were exhibiting queer-like behavior. So like sometimes boy penguins would partner with other boy penguins, or girl penguins would partner with girl penguins. And he also kind of ties in how when scientists would study these animals, they would either ignore the queer behavior or they would make assumptions about, especially with certain bird species, you can't really tell their sex just by looking at them. You have to kind of like look at them more internally to determine what their sex is. Let me take this off. And so a lot of the time when scientists would look at and observe these animals, they just would project kind of their own sexuality ideas onto these animals. And he talks about how even just in the world of science and zoology, there has to be a shift, and there has been somewhat of a shift of like, no, we need to report and talk about these animals in the way that we're actually observing them, instead of just putting our own sexuality and morality ideas onto them. And I thought that was really interesting because at the end of the day, in science, there can tend to be so much of like our own preconceived notions and ideas that aren't true and kind of affect how we see these animals. He says, for years, scientists' favorite explanation for same-sex penguin courting and mating was the error hypothesis. Many penguins themselves couldn't recognize sex differences, they argued. Penguins not being able to tell the difference between males and females. Or maybe it's the zoo that scrambles penguins' brains and makes them do unnatural things. But then a definitive study of wild king penguins was launched in 2010 and found that over 28% of their breeding pairs were same-sex. In one stroke, the study countered both theories. These were wild penguins, so there was no supposed zoo effect interfering with their sexuality, and the proportion of same-sex courtships didn't match what we'd expect in the unlikely event that they truly were unable to discriminate the sex of their partners. Yeah. So good. He says, not all animal behavior needs to have had some benefit to have evolved. Let me say that again. Not all animal behavior needs to have had some benefit to have evolved. Like us, some animals simply make individual choices, and the capacity to make those choices can persist over their species' evolution without having an evolutionary impact. This is what is called a mentalistic explanation for their behavior. Animals might do something, like have sex with a member of the same sex, simply because they have a mind, and having that mind makes them want to. So that was like probably the main point that I took away from this book. Or one of the main points, is that sex isn't only about making a baby. It's also about solidifying bonds within your group, right? And kind of spreading the love, as hippy dippy as that shit sounds. But I'm like, I just think that's so true. Okay, so let's see. What animal do I remember feeling like, wow, that's so interesting? Ooh, bonobos. Definitely, you have to read the bonobos chapter. I think it's so interesting because human beings are genetically, supposedly we're genetically closer to bonobos than we are to chimpanzees. And the way that we can generalize like chimpanzee behavior from bonobo behavior is that chimpanzees are more violent and bonobos are more sexual and loving. And so the way that bonobos kind of bond with each other and solve conflict is by like, masturbating each other off, like jerking each other off. Or not even just like to completion, just like rubbing their genitals together or, kind of channeling that energy into sexual energy. And yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And the bonobos, they do it to like all genders. It's not really, they don't really discriminate. Yeah, bonobos will also have orgies with each other. So they'll kiss each other, open mouth kisses. It's like really fascinating. I love this book. Honestly, I think this is a great book for young people. I would say like middle school, this would be appropriate. As someone who works with kids and wants to get into youth sex education, I actually really do want to kind of include this in my curriculum because I think there's a benefit from having that ability to look at sexuality from an objective perspective, right? And that's really hard to do when it comes to how we see human beings, because we are human beings, but it's so much easier to do when you're looking at animals. So I think that practice of looking at animals from an objective perspective, it makes it easier for you to practice looking at us from an objective perspective. And in that objective perspective, kind of allows us to have less judgment about this really natural, normal behavior. And so this chapter, honestly, is probably... So this chapter kind of helped me understand sex is a way... Help me understand that sex can be a way to strengthen bonds with each other. Like, to honestly, as simple as that. And as someone who in my 20s was like, and when I was single, was very comfortable with casual sex, that's how it feels. It feels like I'm giving a gift to the community. I'm giving a gift to these men who, you know, otherwise, what would they be doing? Nothing. You know what I mean? Like, and so I feel like it's a positive thing. Now, obviously, in our current, like, societal structure, it's not always going to be taken that way, and men have caught feelings and then maybe have left with, like, a sourness to the experience. But I feel like as I got older, I was able to kind of handle those situations more maturely. And I feel like I was able to leave those, you know, kind of sexual relationships to where the guy can look back on it fondly and see it as like a part of his own journey, or see it as, you know, something that he can add to his bucket of confidence or whatever, you know. And yeah, I like that. I think we're all hooking up with each other anyway, single or not. And like, we've been doing this for millennia, you know, like we're so, like, we want to hook up. Not everyone, obviously, everyone's different, but I think like it's common enough for me to think that because of that, it doesn't have to be negative, right? It can be kind of a more positive experience for everyone. It could be, if we all wanted that. Anyway. Okay, so the next one that I want to talk about is bottlenose dolphins. So I loved this chapter because I learned that female bottlenose dolphins have a special kind of vagina where they can kind of like shift it, and on one side, if they shifted on one side, the sperm wouldn't go anywhere. And if they shifted on another side, the sperm could enter the uterus. And so when female bottlenose dolphins have sex, they can choose if they want to put the sperm in the hole that can possibly make a baby or not. And I thought this was tea because I'm like, wait, first of all, I want this ability. But second of all, we do, right? With different contraceptive methods, like we can choose as women, as men too, like if you want to try to make a baby or not. And I just thought that was so powerful to read. And so this kind of showed that female bottlenose dolphins can choose to have sex just for the pleasure of it and not to make a baby. And I'm like, oh my God, me, you know, or so many people I know. And I just loved reading about the bottlenose dolphins. I thought that was a really fantastic chapter. Okay, and then the last chapter I'm going to talk about is the 10th chapter about ducks and geese. And this one was so sweet, especially because like me and my partner, we love to go to this we have these lakes like 5 minutes away from us, and we love to drive there and see all the ducks and just watch them, especially in the spring, because like they'll have their babies and it's just so cute. And what I learned from this chapter is that the family structure that ducks choose has so much variety to it. It's not always a boy duck and a girl duck with their babies. Sometimes the girl ducks get pregnant and they want to raise their babies with their female partners, with another girl duck, and it'll be 2 girl ducks with their babies. Sometimes boy ducks will adopt baby ducks with their boy duck partner. And it's not even just the child rearing, it's also they'll like hump each other and stuff. And I just thought it was so beautiful because it illustrated this idea of like creating a family any way that you want, right? Like you can adopt with another boy duck. You can get pregnant by a boy duck and then leave him and then raise the babies with another girl duck. There's just so many options. And I think we can apply that to us as human beings of like, you can raise a family however you want to. Like it can be queer, it can not be queer, it can look a lot of different ways, because at the end of the day, as long as those baby ducks have some adult ducks to take care of them and who love them, it doesn't really matter. And ducks will also like adopt baby ducks that they like if they see baby ducks by themselves and stuff, and it's just so sweet and loving. Basically, highly recommend this book. It was a really easy read as well. You could probably read it in like a day or two. And yeah, it gives you some good talking points, especially for us progressives if we're having conversations with conservatives about queerness. And, you know, you can bring up some of the things you learn in this book to kind of justify like, no, queerness is not unnatural. No, queerness is not inherently wrong. And I just think that's so important. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time for the next book, which I read, which was called Essential Labor. So, thank you so much for joining. I'm so glad that you're here, and I will see you next time. Bye.